What's up, all you beautiful people? So I am finally back. I know I took a bit of a hiatus. I was having a few issues with my editing software, but I got that fixed. Basically, what I really need is just a better computer. So maybe one day I can make money from doing this YouTube thing, and then I can buy myself a better computer that won't break on me when I'm trying to edit my videos. I don't even know how long it's been. It's gotta have been at least a month, maybe a month and a half. It couldn't have been better timing for me to get everything fixed and ready to go again, because I just saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and I have a lot of things to say about this. I'm pretty excited to talk about Marvel again, because it's been a while. I guess it hasn't been a while, but it's been a while since I've had something in Marvel that I have a lot to talk about. I'll let you know what that means later in the video. We're gonna start off with a pretty quick and brief spoiler-free section of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and then we'll move into the whole spoiler thing, and I can really delve in and kind of go into detail to what I'm thinking about this movie, which is a lot. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 obviously is the third installment in the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. This was James Gunn's last Marvel product. Completely whatsoever, because James Gunn is taking over DC. James Gunn is the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy series. Was gonna be a tearjerker. This was gonna be something sad in any right, and I think this movie definitely took it to a whole nother level, and not in the way that you're probably thinking. I'm gonna be honest. It's kind of in a very interesting, fucked up way. I think that's a pretty plain and simple, easy way to say it. But since this was James Gunn's last film with the Guardians, I don't know what his ultimate plan was before all the DC stuff happened, how many movies he wanted to make with the Guardians of the Galaxy. This movie definitely felt like there was quite a bit shoved into it. I will say that. I think that it's probably a little bit too long. I will say there was too much going on. It wasn't hard to follow, but there was just a lot happening, and so you did have to pay attention to a lot, which can be a good thing sometimes, but I don't know. And this movie did make me feel like I was having to pay attention to a bit too much. One of the biggest things about this movie that I definitely want to preface and say, and usually when people say things like this, I'm like, oh, okay, it's probably not that bad. I mean, it's a Marvel movie, how bad could it be? And this movie is fucked up. Like, this is one of the more fucked up movies that I have probably seen in years. I mean, I don't really go out to watch horror movies specifically. I'll watch them when they come out onto a streaming service or something, or I'll watch them once in a blue moon in a movie theater, but I'm not a horror buff. I don't go out to see horror movies. But this movie, I mean, it's not horror. It doesn't give me a horror vibe or anything, but I definitely had images and things of this movie that made me feel very unsettled. So if you have any issue with sort of animal abuse, it's pretty much just animal abuse, honestly. It's in this entire movie. It's basically what the entire movie is about. Well, that is just a fair warning. I mean, that is a very light spoiler, but I think it's something good to preface to people to prepare them for what this movie is and what we get into watching this movie. I even had to tell my mom, because she's pretty sensitive to this stuff, to maybe even not watch this movie, because she's that sensitive to it. Anyways, overall thoughts of the movie. This is a good movie. This is the best Marvel product. I would have to actually go back and remember what has come out in between No Way Home and this movie, but I think this is the best Marvel movie since No Way Home. That being said, this is the worst Guardians of the Galaxy movie to me. Because of that darker tone that I was talking about and what this whole movie is based around, it really makes this movie not feel as jovial and as happy and as Guardians of the Galaxy as the first two movies are. The beauty of the first two Guardians of the Galaxy movies is that they were the ones that kind of started the jovial, happy quirkiness of the MCU that all of the movies have now. And so they kind of stood out in that way. They did balance it with really emotional and amazing moments between characters within that kind of jokey sphere that they have going on. This movie gets very serious a lot of the time. I don't think the jokes hit as well as they do in the previous two movies. Another one of the big things about the Guardians of the Galaxy movies are the soundtracks and how well James Gunn usually picks out these songs to go within the movie in these certain moments. This movie, I don't think the songs hit at all. I don't think they're terrible, but they're definitely not great. They're very mid. It feels like they kind of come out of nowhere. I'm kind of distracted by everything else that is happening, and then you start playing this song when it's a really serious moment. I don't know. It just felt a little jarbled and a little bit off to me. Now, the way that I'm talking about this, it sounds like I'm kind of negative on this movie. I'm not. I think this movie was pretty good, and I think it was probably on the higher tier of good. But the first two Guardians of the Galaxy movies are probably, both of them are in my top 10 of the whole MCU. So I had high hopes going into this movie, and I mean, that's just kind of continuing the tale of what's happening with Marvel nowadays. And it kind of sucks to see because I love Marvel stuff so much, but things are just they're just not hitting. I remember every time a Marvel movie would come out and it would be something super weird, like it was Guardians of the Galaxy, like Ant-Man, or like, which happens to be the two most recent movies. But I don't know, that just kind of, that is Marvel, where they release something weird like that, but then they nail it. You see the trailer or you hear the announcement of the movie and you're like, okay, what the hell is this? That Ant-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy? Mainstream people have no idea what that is. And then they release them and they're amazing. And you fall in love with these characters so much. And Marvel, I mean, it's just, this is what happens when you put out this much content. It gets repetitive. I don't know. That's a whole nother topic. I might make just a separate video talking about the state of the MCU and maybe I might just do a little news thing. I talk about what I'm thinking about the DCU coming in, with James Gunn taking that over, and then the state of the MCU. I might do that. Sorry, I got a lot to say. I know it's been a while since I've been on the channel because of, technical difficulties, I guess. With that being said, I do want to go into spoilers. If you don't want any spoilers, then you better click off on the video. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so this movie is not about finding Gamora, which is what we did kind of get that from the trailers. I think it was pretty obvious at this point, but it still surprised me because this movie, you would assume Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was going to be about, okay, Peter needs to go find Gamora. He's all depressed and drinking, drunk, and getting blacked out all the time, causing problems, but it's not about that. And Gamora's in it, and it's kind of a weird vibe. She's not the Gamora that we know from the first two movies. She's just not. She's a Gamora from a different timeline that didn't go through all the same experiences that the Gamora that died in Endgame did. I don't know. That was just kind of surprising to me. This movie is, and quite frankly, a Rocket movie, which is the best part of the movie. And that's what I meant when I was saying in the spoiler-free section with how much was going on, is that the Rocket stuff is really amazing, and that's like the main through plot of the movie. But there's so much else going on in this movie. So if you remember, I know I don't remember when Guardians 2 came out, but it's got to be like 6 or 7 years ago because it was before Endgame and before Infinity War. One of the post-credit scenes was this Adam Warlock guy, this perfect human. Well, I guess they didn't say any of that, but we thought that it was going to be heavily involved with Adam Warlock. And I think they kind of had to just scrap that because James Gunn wanted to tell a Rocket story more, so they just brought in Adam Warlock because they teased him. He is in the movie maybe a third of it. He doesn't have very many lines. He doesn't do very much. The Sovereign whole plot line that you thought was going to be carried over into the next Guardians story, pretty much irrelevant. The lady just dies, and then Adam Warlock kind of joins the team. That's really it. He fights him a couple times. It's like the opening fight scene, and that's kind of how the through plot line starts, is with Adam Warlock coming in. I'm gonna try my best to not just try to explain everything in this movie because there is so much, but basically the Guardians own Nowhere now, which you'd know if you saw the holiday special, which is kind of cool. Groot's a big bulky tank now. That's kind of fun. And also in the beginning, you think that Groot is dead again, just straight off the bat, but apparently he grows back really, really fast now. I know he always grew back. Anyways, Adam Warlock comes in, fucks up all the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then shoots Rocket. So basically the plot of the movie are the Guardians trying to save Rocket because, Peter's already super messed up from losing Gamora. He's like, I'm not losing another friend, so he's kind of being a little bit irrational, just like he was in Infinity War and almost ruined the universe when he did ruin the universe by smacking Thanos in the face with that whole Gamora thing in Infinity War. But anyways, so that's the plot of the movie. They're trying to save Rocket. From there, things get very garbled and messy and crazy. But I will just kind of go over the few plot points in the film that really stuck out to me, really just kind of fucked me up because this movie is just insane. So the High Evolutionary, that's supposed to be the main bad guy, which is weird because he thought it was supposed to be Adam Warlock, like I was talking about earlier. So it's the High Evolutionary, and this dude basically has a god complex and wants to make the perfect species. So that's basically his whole life goal. That is how Rocket is created. That's the thing that he would refuse to talk about in the previous movies, and that he has all this PTSD about. The High Evolutionary experimented on these raccoons and created Rocket. And this is where just the gnarly stuff that I was trying to warn you about in the spoiler-free section with the brutal animal torture comes in, because he puts in all these Cybertronics. It like insinuates and like kind of third person blurs out, shows Rocket being cut open and all these cybernetic things being put into him. And then he gets thrown in this cell where he makes all these friends, where he makes friends with this otter with no arms that's named Lila or Lilia, I believe. And she's horrifying. It really reminds you of Sid's house in Toy Story with all of his horrific toys that he's put together. Specifically his other friend, which is a bunny that has like this visor put over its mouth or eyes, put over its mouth. It has no mouth. And then it has spider arms, little metal spider arms, and it is horrifying. And then there's this other walrus sitting in a wheelchair with these little cybernetic things that like pull his eyelids open. It's horrifying. It's all horrifying. It's very weird, horrific kind of stuff I would see in a horror movie. There is so much of that in this movie. Because you kind of think when you first see it, you're like, oh, okay, that's that, and that's gonna be it. But it's flashbacking to it's doing flashbacks to Rocket's past the entire movie. And so it's just constantly coming back to this really freaky animal torture stuff, and it's hard to watch. So you come later into there, and Rocket ends up getting all of his friends killed too, and he does this whole escape thing. I know that's jumping way forward in the movie, but like I said, I'm gonna kind of stick to Rocket's story a little bit more than the rest of it because that's just what stuck out to me, and that's what I really thought thrived in this movie. Peter and the Guardians just are going on this adventure to try to save Rocket, who has some sort of mechanical thing not allowing normal healing on him for whatever. They have these med kits that kind of shock you and just auto heal or whatever. I don't know, some Marvel crap. He has something on his heart where if you try to do that, then it just auto kills him. So they're trying to find the code to kind of get rid of that. And it is the adventure ensues. And honestly, it's even kind of hard for me to remember what they are all doing in their moments because I'm only worried about the whole Rocket scenario. Gamora is a Ravager. Apparently that's her new family that this Gamora from the past found in the new timeline that she got brought into. Very hard to describe this movie with all the jumping wild MCU multiverse stuff, but it is what it is. She is a completely different character. She's kind of an asshole. She's like shooting people. She's willing to torture people. She's willing to kill people. She's not like the good Gamora. It's really weird because Nebula really takes her place in this movie. And almost they do some weird like Nebula Peter Quill flirting stuff, so that stuff gets a little bit weird. Like they're trying to replace Nebula or trying to replace Gamora with Nebula and make it a new love interest. They don't actually go into that, but they tease it a little bit and it's a little bit weird. I know that's in the trailer. Honestly, pretty funny moment in the movie. And like I was saying before, the funny stuff wasn't hitting for me in this movie as much. One of my favorite characters in the MCU is Drax because his deadpan, stupid humor, the stupid literal sense that he takes to everything is so funny to me in the first and specifically the second movie, and second movie including Infinity War. He's not in Endgame. Yeah, he's not in Endgame except for fighting, but Infinity War and Guardians 2. But in this, I don't know, it just didn't hit the same for me. It was still funny. I still enjoyed it. I laughed more than I did in most MCU movies, but I don't know, it just wasn't on the same level, and I think that's because James Gunn didn't have enough time to do that. He just wanted to cram in what he really wanted out of this story and this creation that he's been working on for the past almost 10 years, because I think the first Guardians came out in 2014 or something like that. It is what it is. One thing I will say, because the MCU has really been slacking in this department, which is so crazy with the budget of Disney, this movie looks amazing, and I'm so excited about that. The CG in this movie is beautiful. The space scenes that they do, the CG animals, any of their just effects, the ship landing on like a normal Earth, it was so cool looking. The giant ships fighting at the end of the movie, it's basically Nowhere, which the Guardians own, which is the severed head of the Celestial they all live in, which is in the first movie, versus the High Evolutionary's giant ship. I don't know, it's just cool. It looks good. Where should I go from here? I think I'll go back to the High Evolutionary. The High Evolutionary is a very fine bad guy. Like I've heard a couple of other people say, he's very good in the beginning because I like that God complex, and you can see a little bit of insanity in him because he yells and kind of freaks out on people every once in a while. But you can see what this man is thinking and just like how fucked up he is and how much he does not give a shit about anything. He is creating all these life forms and creating these creatures to try and create this perfect society. But if he fails and it doesn't work out, it'll just ice him. It doesn't matter. Dude doesn't give a flying fuck. And so he's pretty scary and pretty intimidating that way. And I think the actor, I don't know his name. I wish I should really start pulling up all their names to make sure I can give people credit. I think he did a really amazing job, but where I was going with that is at the end, he turns into a kind of a screamy, whiny baby, which is interesting because I thought this guy was so intimidating and so scary, but then he comes in at the end and he's just screaming and whining like a child. His crew tries to pull a mutiny on him, and so he just basically nukes them all with whatever technology powers that he has. They all die, and then he just goes into scream mode. He's just screaming at everybody, but he's really not that intimidating. He's not that scary, and I think that makes sense because it's so hard to get somebody that's intimidating and scary just from raw power. Once we've had people like Thanos and Kang, and just these ultra uber god characters, villains. And so I don't know, it just kind of falls flat for me. But he was fine in general. This movie ends in a very weird way to me because, you know, I guess it's kind of a good thing because it deters from what everybody was expecting, but I was really expecting this movie to end with Rocket dying, with Peter dying, with somebody dying. Nobody dies in this movie. Nobody. Which I've said before, even in just the Ant-Man movie, it really sucks because it doesn't make characters feel sacred in the MCU when you can't kill off somebody. You have to be able to kill somebody, or else it just makes everybody feel invincible and there's no stakes in any movies. So I was really excited for this because I thought they were actually going to be able to do that. And they didn't. So the MCU still apparently just can't kill people because they have to keep them around in case they want to make another movie to make more money, which is really starting to annoy me because I want there to be some stakes. People need to die. I know that sounds gnarly, but it adds to the story, and they still weren't able to do it. And instead, they didn't even, I mean, I guess it's happy, but it's not the ending that, this is just opinion-based stuff. I mean, it's all opinionated. That's what it is. But this is just, in my opinion, I think that they should have, you know, banded up as a team and kind of lived out their lives together, because the whole point of the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise is finding this family because they have all lost their family and they're all feeling lost in the universe, and they all come together and meld together really well and find this new family. This movie ends with all of them disbanding basically to go find their own new families. Not new families, but like their old families, and reunite. Kind of, if this is really the last movie, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of the Guardians of the Galaxy series, which is just it's kind of weird to me. I didn't hate it, but I don't know, I guess it's just what I was expecting, and I didn't get what I was expecting, which is just kind of the nature of watching movies like this, you know. It just is what it is. And it ends up ending with a post-credit scene of Rocket and Groot teaming up with Adam Warlock, some little kid with superpowers, and Kraglin with his little whistle arrow. And so they're the new Guardians of the Galaxy, I guess. I don't really know. So maybe we're still getting Guardians movies, but with completely different characters and a different director and everything like that. That's one of those things that just kind of sucks. It's like, Marvel, okay, make a new product. Don't just do a shitty revamp of what we already got. Whatever. One of the other the very end of the credits says Star-Lord will return. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if that is him being involved with Guardians of the Galaxy stuff, or if that means they're going to have like a Star-Lord movie, because in the end of the movie, he goes and meets up with his grandpa, his mom's dad, kind of reconvenes and melds this relationship with him. But I don't know. What is that movie going to be? Just Star-Lord hanging out on Earth? Is he gonna go back with the Guardians? Who fucking knows? All in all, I'll give kind of a ranking of this movie. What I thought about this movie is that I liked it quite a bit. I know I sounded pretty negative in the video. I liked it quite a bit. I enjoyed my time. I was glued to the screen the entire time. It's a little bit too long. There's some really fucked up stuff in it. I won't say that's a detriment to the movie, at least not for me. It will be for some people, because it made me feel a lot. It's definitely the worst Guardians movie. I would probably give this movie a 7.5 out of 10, which is pretty good. If I was gonna rank it as a Marvel movie ranking, just in like the Marvel movie list, all of Marvel movies, it would be a very solid like 5.5 maybe. It's very in the middle of the Marvel tier. And that's kind of my opinion on the movie. So let me know if you saw this movie in the comments down below. Let me know what you thought about it. Let me know if you thought it was really fucked up. Let me know your ranking of it between the other Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And if you liked it, let me know. With that, give me a like and subscribe.